Hey, today we're going to learn how to roll a coil, just so that we can begin our coil bowls. So the first thing you're going to do is take out a chunk of clay about this big, and you're going to start by just pressing and rolling with one hand using your palm. Okay. Once you kind of got that, it's going to start flopping around. That's because it's flat on one end and tall on the other. Turn it on its side and just kind of squish that down, and that will help you to keep rolling. Once it gets too long for just one single hand, that's when you start using both. For me, when I roll a coil, I spread my fingers apart, and I'm going to roll really high and really low towards myself and side to side, so that it keeps the coil nice and even and round. Because if you don't do all of those things and think about all those things at the same time, your coil will end up too thick or too thin or flat on one edge, and that's never fun. But if it does flatten out again, turn it on the long side or the tall side, smush it down, and keep rolling. You never want to roll your coil thinner than your pinky, and if it starts cracking, spray it with a little water and use your finger to smooth the surface, and then you can keep rolling. So right now, that's about a good length for my coil, for any kind of coil, good thickness. From here, you need to make decisions, because as it comes time to actually start your coil bowl, you need to have a plan in mind, a pattern, because each pattern, you want each coil to be the same size. When you roll this, you're going to start by measuring whichever one you make is your first coil. You want to use that as your measuring piece for every coil after that. So from here, I want to cut a bunch of pieces that are all going to be the same length. Okay, for the next part, you're going to need to have several coils rolled out that are all the same size for each layer. And the second thing you need to do to start this coil bowl is you're going to want one longer piece to do your base. So, let the bell finish ringing. Take your coil bowl, or your bowl, line it with paper towel, because you don't want this to stick to your bowl, okay, or to stick to your surface. Preferably one piece if it'll fit. You just don't want it to stick. Okay, and then take this and you're going to put it into whatever pattern or shape that you're planning on doing for your coil bowl, the base. So maybe if I start like this, if I just want to do a simple circular pattern on the bottom, okay, I'm going to wrap that around and start putting it inside, because I need to measure how big this needs to be. So I'm putting it down into the middle. I'm wrapping it around, and then I'm going to trim it or cut it wherever it fits the bottom. Okay, so I have it like this. Then I'm going to spray it with a little water, and I'm going to pull out my potter's knife. The potter's thumb part is the part that's going to knit it down, and I would knit towards the center to compress those clay coils together. So as I'm pressing towards the middle. Okay, and this is called knitting. Okay. And then you can smooth out that interior. You can use just your hand, you can use your sponge and smooth it. You could use your rib tool, your metal rib tool to this. This is especially helpful. And you can press it down and smooth it all in. Okay? Set that aside when you're finished. And you're going to take each of your individual coils that are all rolled the same length, and you're going to do whatever pattern it was that you had planned for your first design. So if this is my design for my bottom pattern, the first one that's circling the bottom, I'm going to make sure I do all of these the same exact time so that they all are the same, basically. Just want to keep them uniform. Okay, and I'm going to pause it so I can move on to the next page. Okay, so I've got those all set in there exactly after I made all the M shapes or W shapes. I put them in there, and I happen to have 2 coils left over, and that's okay. Again, I would spray it just a little bit. Take your potter's knife, and again, we're going to work on knitting all of those together. So if you can see, And try to, let's see, you're up on the top. You're going to compress those ones sideways. Okay, press really hard, and then you're going to compress down to attach it to the bottom of the bowl. So you're going to have to knit backwards and sideways, side to side, and then also knit it down to hit the bottom of that bowl. And as you can see, you want to close up any gaps unless you're intentionally leaving holes. I realize some of the patterns will have holes in them, but for the most part, you want to compress all this together. Pausing it. Okay, so I've compressed it all or knitted it all together, and now I'm going to spray it with a little bit of water. And this time I'm going to go over it with both my hands to kind of smooth and knit those coils together really well. And then after I'm done with this, I'm going to use my sponge to really smooth it down and give it a nice texture. I'm doing that a little bit more, smoothing out the tops. And a lot of these blemishes you won't even realize. They're not going to show up at all. And really compress, push down with your fingers, and then you can use your sponge to really mop up the extra water and smooth it down. And then you just start your next layer. So you'd again grab a bunch more coils, and let's say you were just doing like a single ring on the outside. Maybe you just start by adding off those second ring, and then you knit those ones down, and you do it all over again. And by the time you're done, when you pop this out, this should be leather hard before you were to pull it out. But if I peel it out right now, you can start to see what that bowl will look like once it's actually dried and you can get it fired.